Two-headed right, two heads are better than one-headed right. Two heads are better than one-headed right. Two heads are better than one-headed right. Two heads are better than one.
Hello! Welcome back to our channel. My name is Evelyn.
My name is Monty.
And together we are the Two-Headed
Two-Headed
Writer, a father-daughter writing team based out of Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Every week we get together to have a conversation about our writing journey, and we're glad to have you along with us. Evelyn is a student at University of Iowa studying creative writing. I am a wannabe author studying creative writing, so we are on this journey together. We have written a book together. We are working on novels on our own and other projects.
How goes your folly?
My folly! Alright, well, I'm making significant progress. I always feel like I'm in a perpetual state of saying I'm almost done. And, I'm still in that perpetual state of saying I'm almost done. With everything I do, I'm almost done all the time. So I've come up with a name for it. It is called Storiolio. Evelyn thinks it's a dumb name, but hey, it's fun to say. Try it. Say Storiolio. So you almost have to shout it because it's so much fun. So it is available at storiolio.com. I'm still working on it, but if you want to go see what it looks like right now, you could go to storiolio.com. It's right there. I have a short to-do list. And every time I complete something on it, I add something to it. So, I keep finding things that need tweaking. Things like, I didn't think about what if a user wants to delete their account. They have no way of doing it. I have to add that. So I'm just adding functionality. You have to kind of imagine your user and what they might want to do and provide, all the basics. I also need to write some stories for it before I start telling people about it. So there's something there for them to read. There are some things there right now for you to read. They're not that great, but it's just kind of testing out the system. So, but check it out if you want. You can see what I've been up to. So, how have you been doing with your writing, Evelyn? Are you still getting in your 300 words a day?
No, I have a lot of words, like over 20,000 words in this manuscript, and they're not in any sort of order, which...
It's 20,000 random words.
Yes. I have a bunch of scenes written, but I haven't put them in order yet, and I've gotten to the point where I'm trying to write scenes that are connective and scenes that I hadn't put in the outline super specifically, and so I'm like, what goes before this? What goes after this? I need to know that to be able to write it, and I was drawing a blank because everything was jumbled up together. So I showed you last time, but I now have a bigger and better Post-it note outline on my wall that I'm trying to work with. I had a setback. I ran out of Post-it notes, and then the Post-it notes that I ordered online got delivered who knows where, so then we ordered new Post-it notes, and they were different size, so then I rewrote the entire thing, but then the Post-it notes appeared magically, the first Post-it notes that I ordered, so now I have way too many Post-it notes.
You rewrote the whole thing because the Post-it notes are different size?
Well, I took the chance to consolidate things down so that multiple small Post-it notes go on the big Post-it notes, because I decided, okay, these two things definitely are going in the same chapter, so I'll just go ahead and put them on this bigger Post-it note because they go back to back, that sort of thing. So why I'm using Post-it notes is because they're impermanent and I can take them down off the wall and move them around, and it's easier to kind of not be super attached to the order of things.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is a blank wall and 10 is here's my outline, where are you at?
Well, I'm at about an 8 in terms of putting everything that I already have written up on that wall. Because the first, I'm going to put everything that I have written up on that wall, and then I'm going to go into Scrivener and I'm going to put all of it in order based on the outline. And then I'm going to take that and figure out what new scenes need to be written, put those up on the wall, and then be able to track what I've written and start writing those.
So where do you think you are in terms of the whole novel?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay. Sounds like we're both making good progress. And now we shall speak of our book that we are writing together.
Yes.
And we've been meeting every evening for about an hour to read. You've been reading the chapters to me. I've been making little notes, and we make little changes. And I say little because mostly it's just, oh, that sentence was confusing or something like that. Occasionally there's a little bit of a bigger change. I'm working on one right now. I hope to have done before our meeting tonight, because we identified a section in the chapter that was redundant and also a need that we didn't fulfill. So we're like, let's use the redundant section to fulfill that need. And so I'm rewriting about a 4 or 5 paragraph section. We're on chapter 21 next out of 34, so we're 2/3 of the way through. So far, I think we're both feeling like we really like our book. What do you think, Ev?
Yeah, I like her book.
So we're coming very close to feeling like this is the best we can do, and we're going to get it published or bust. All right. Okay. Oh, what's that? Oh, my goodness. Look, it's Monster World Draft 1. Never heard of it.
So, I've been cleaning out my room. I haven't lived in my room full time most of this year, and when I came back, I was like, there are some ways I could improve this space. And so I've been doing that, and one of the things was I got new bookshelves, and I had a bunch of notebooks stored in a little, cubby thing in the bottom of my old bookshelves, and one of them was this. This is actually the first draft of what is now Inklings of Ethermore, and
we're working on draft 9. This is draft 1.
We could look how big this is. This is he printed it out for me for my birthday, my 15th birthday.
15. 4 years ago.
So I thought it would be fun to look at this because we've been looking at our we've been looking at our current draft a lot recently, so we're pretty familiar with how our story's going so far. There are a lot of differences here. The very first thing here, he spelled prologue wrong.
Stop.
I did take a peek at the prologue before sitting down to film this. It's very different than the prologue I remember. I remember later we tried to fix the prologue by changing the way that it was written. And then there was a version of this story where each section opened with a little prologue chapter from the point of view of a different Inkling, which we don't usually get Inkling point of views in the book.
I still love those chapters, but
they're so fun to
needed.
read, but they're not at all relevant to Macy's story.
Oh, Valentine's Day spiders.
This also has Marcellus' point of view.
That's
still
right.
In this, Marcellus is one of our antagonistic characters, and he's a fully grown adult. And we had his point of view in the book, and we realized, oh, you know what? Children don't really want to read
We were told.
the point of view of a fully grown adult antagonist. So we had to cut that, but
we didn't realize that on our own. We got a lot of feedback from a lot of people on this book, and we listened to the good advice that we got, and we need to say how thankful we are.
Yes.
To those people.
Well, we can read the first part of the prologue. So, prologue, and I crossed it out and I said spelling.
Good job. Until recently, there was a famous chocolate factory in Schlossenberg, Germany, known for its...
Is that a real place?
No,
Okay.
not as far as I know. The man who ran it, Ignatius Huntington, was the closest thing to a real-life Willy Wonka, except that he had a very un-Wonka-like reputation as a millionaire playboy. The similarity, if there really was one, came from some dark secrets surrounding the operation of the factory. Millions of rolls of chocolate buttons were produced every month, yet nobody ever went in and nobody ever came out. Where did we get that line? This was an evening when Iggy, as his loved ones called him, felt he really should
have loved ones.
I know. Felt he really should spend some time with his 14-year-old daughter Twyla. She'd been begging him to watch a certain movie with her. In fact, she was waiting for him this very moment, probably letting their popcorn get cold. He had tried to do right by his latest little family, his last chance at domestic success. He was too old to try again, but Twyla's mother had left him anyway when Twyla was 5.
This is a lot of information for a not main character.
I know, this is so wrong, this just feels so wrong. Like, this isn't even who this story's about. None of these characters should matter at this point. Oh, wow, this is so funny. Filling the entire space between the glass case, the metal cabinet, and the desk was an enormous brown dragon.
We described the entire scene.
That's a shocker.
It went to our thoughts. And then we're like, oh yeah, by the way, dragon.
There's a dragon there, by the way. Its head drooped guiltily, listening to one side so it could make eye contact, yet the eye only connected briefly before it rolled toward the floor. Now this is what I remember as the prologue, is his conversation with Brownie. Iggy spoke in standard German with an overly patient, slightly irritated voice, as one might speak to a wayward toddler just before losing patience entirely. The dragon replied in one of the lower German dialects, its demeanor that of a frightened child, despite its great size.
It's very specific.
I know. Brownie, look at me. Did you put a proper scare into them like I told you to? Brownie, the dragon's eye pointed reluctantly toward its interrogator. Yeah, boss.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just did. I done just like you said. The eye dropped again, and the snake-like neck drooped even further. Brownie, look at me. Obviously something went wrong. Tell me what went wrong. The dragon blubbered. Great globs of viscous brown liquid flowed from its eyes and nostrils. It blew its nose.
No, not eyes, just eye. Why are we only describing one of his eyes at a
flowed
time?
from its eye and nostrils. I don't know. It makes it sound like it only has one eye. It blew its nose on its wing, and a half-dozen brown splotches hit the walls and ceiling behind. He opened a desk drawer and pulled out a small device that looked something like television remote control. Do I need to calm you down with a little jolt?
Oh yeah, you used to electrocute the inkling. Oh my gosh.
I forgot that too. The dragon clawed in a metal ring fitted snugly around its neck. That's all we really decided. That's all we needed. Please, not that. Suddenly the creature began to shrink. In just a moment it was smaller than a terrier, and it stepped deftly out of the metal ring, which had retained its size.
Oh, and he doesn't put a...
Yeah, Brownie doesn't wear a ring.
Yeah.
He doesn't need one.
Yeah.
Brownie, you know what happens when you shirk the ring. The dragon grew back to half its previous size, holding the ring nervously between its two clawed fingers. 9, I can't help it. Well, one thing that strikes me is that the underlying characters and story are the same.
Yeah.
Motivations are the same.
Yeah.
The things that happen are the same.
Yeah, you could assume they had this conversation in
This could have happened in the world of the book as it is currently written. We just didn't write about it. It's like just deciding what to show the reader and in what order. And it makes a huge difference to the reader's perception of the story.
I'm going to read Elves versus Leprechauns.
Okay.
So...
No, just read it.
Yeah, okay. Walking through a tunnel, expecting to find leprechauns, brought Macy and Sparky, he's an inkling she's traveling with, to a neighborhood of cobblestone streets and quaint shops. All they had to do from there was follow the rainbow that hung across the bright blue sky. It was at the end of this rainbow that Macy found a small Irish pub situated between a bookstore and a shoemaker shop. The brightly painted sign hanging above the door read, "The Pot of Gold." The pub was filled to the brim with rowdy little men dressed in buckled green jackets. They ran around drinking, talking, eating food, playing cards, and generally creating a ruckus. But as soon as Macy stepped into the pub, all of that ceased. Every leprechaun in the room froze, staring at Macy in surprise. "Hi," Macy said, waving at the tiny men. "I'm looking for the Leprechaun League." "It's a girl!" One of the leprechauns said in surprise.
Nice, Prologue.
Thank you. Now I can't do it again. "A human girl," another equally shocked leprechaun added. "Don't just stand there staring at her like a bunch of idiots. Idiots? Idiots? Okay. So the third leprechaun scolded, pushing his way to the front of the room. "My name is Brendan," he said in a thick Irish accent. I'm losing it. "And if you're looking for the Leprechaun League, you found it. Welcome to our..." This is a mistake. "Headquarters." The tiny red-headed man nodded to the room around them, a fine fringe of beard wagging beneath his chin. "What brings you here on this fine day?" "I need to talk to the leader of this organization," Macy explained, trying to sound as professional as possible. "That would be me," Brendan announced proudly. "What can I do for you, little lady?" "I'm here to ask about chocolate sales," Macy said. Brendan's face lit up in a huge grin. "Wonderful! We'll want to talk in private then," he said, turning and making his way back through the crowded pub. "The rest of you stop gaping and get back to your shenanigans." Once inside, the first thing Macy noticed was the gold. Piles and piles of shiny coins covered every surface, including Brendan's desk and the visitor's chair placed in front of it. "Don't mind the gold," Brendan said casually. "You caught me in the middle of accounting. Feel free to move it around." "Is this all real gold?" Macy asked him. "Aye, well, most of it is. One of these columns is chocolate. Let me see." Brendan picked out a gold piece and bit it experimentally. "That's the one." He unwrapped the gold foil and popped the chocolate coin into his mouth. He tossed Macy another coin from the pile. "Try it, I insist. By far it's the best chocolate you'll taste in Monster World, guaranteed." "I understand you've got some pretty stiff competition from the elves," Macy said. "What's your secret? How do you manage to stay ahead of the game?" "You mean the luge?" Brendan asked. "It's pretty easy to outsell them. Our boys are better salesmen than those overly cheerful nincompoops." And Brendan leaned in and spoke in a low conspiratorial tone. "To be completely honest, it doesn't hurt that we've got a lucky shamrock." Macy crooked up an eyebrow at this.
I forgot about the shamrock.
So Holly was right. The LL did have luck on their side. "Lucky shamrock?" Macy asked. "Just a bit of superstition, really," Brendan said as he pulled open his desk drawer. He took out a small shamrock carved from emerald. "The boys think it gives us good luck, and thinking it makes it true. They credit this little beauty with all our sales success." Brendan put the shamrock back in the drawer and closed it reverently. "Or maybe it's just because your chocolate is so good," Macy suggested. Her mind was racing. How to get into that drawer? So I picked this chapter because we recently discussed wanting to save these leprechauns, not for this book, but we're hoping to make this a series, so for like the later books in the series. And
yeah, and not because of anything you've read here.
It's
because of their conflict with the elves. And
yes, and also they're just fun characters to play with. This is a very rough version of these leprechaun characters, but they were really like funny and wild, and they're one of the things that we ended up cutting, but were sad about cutting, and I feel confident in our decision to get rid of them. We're not missing anything, but we thought of a way that they might add to the conflict of book 2, and so we're potentially going to bring them back in for that, because we do mention them. They are a thing that exists in book
they
1.
still exist in the universe. A lot like the prologue. This doesn't happen anymore. Macy doesn't meet the leprechauns in this book.
But their feud with the elves is still very real.
Everything else is there. Like they mention the LL and the Leprechaun League, and so this could still have happened. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had a pretty fully formed concept for this whole story, right? Even on draft 1. They got cut fairly late in the process. I think it's only been 2 or 3 drafts since we had leprechauns.
Because we were so reluctant to take them out.
And this whole sequence got refined a lot, too.
Because we were
Like it was the Santa
really trying
sack
to
that
cling.
that she needed to get, not
Yes.
the shamrock.
Right.
And
There's some like feuding. There was
a big
a
fight.
turncoat involved. But we had this very detailed conflict between these two groups of Inklings, and it's something that only happened because of human interference in the world. And so I think that
that's true.
it was a really interesting thing to explore, and I would really want to explore it further because it is
It's like core to our theme.
humans entering Ethermore affects Ethermore in a way that is not natural for Ethermore, because until events preceding this book that allow the events in this book to happen, humans could only enter Ethermore if portals formed naturally, and those didn't form very often. And so Ethermore is not necessarily set up in a way where interaction between humans and Inklings is a normal thing. And we see that a lot. Lots of Inklings who are very shocked and surprised to see a human for the first time. And so...
Well, in person.
Yeah. One of our big, like, core things is, like, is it moral for humans and Inklings to be interacting? And can humans interact with Inklings without, like, abusing the power that they hold over
Right.
the Inklings?
Right.
When we had to cut this, I was like, oh, man. Like, it was one of the sadder things to cut. There are things we've cut. There are lots of things in here, I would say, that we've cut that I don't think about that often.
Glad we got rid of that.
But there are a couple characters in particular that I'm like, every time I think about them, I'm like, oh, the Leprechauns, or oh, Choodle, right? And you kind of miss them, and so I'm excited that we maybe came up with a way that we can include these guys in the future, because right now we haven't like really sat down and worked it out, but it seems to make sense what we think we might include them in.
Well, you seem to be really, you're thinking about book 2 in a way that sort of presupposes that there will be a book 2. Are you really just like ready to, once we call book 1 done, get started on making a book 2, even if we don't have it published yet?
Discussing an outline, I mean, usually I've seen advice where it's like, if you want to publish something as a series, or if you just want to keep getting published, once you sign with an agent, you should be able to tell them, oh, hey, I have this next thing ready. And we don't really have that. We need to at least have...
we have the next thing. It's right here.
I think we should be working on at least coming up with the barest outline for, if not book 2, for the rest of, like, because we want it to be a 3-book series. We have so many more ideas for things that could happen in Ethermore, and I think it's such a fun, expansive world that just a single book would be a waste of...
Yeah, you kind of read this book and go, I want more Ethermore. I hope. That's how I feel.
I think the best books create worlds where you're like, oh, I could totally be part of that. And we've set up a world where it's like, well, not everybody gets to go to Ethermore, but everyone has an inkling.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, well, I can't find this machine, but, like, you can find the magic of the Inklings within yourself.
I always prefer a book like that where you can imagine yourself in that world having the sort of adventure that your main character's having, as opposed to, oh, you are the chosen one. You're the only person in the whole world that could possibly fill this role.
Yeah,
and
Macy definitely...
well, I guess that's not me.
It's her family, which is why she's involved, but anyone could do the things that Macy is doing.
Right.
She is just very imaginative and good at controlling her imagination, which makes her good at Ethermore, but even Trent, who is not so great at that, it's something you can learn to do.
Right.
And so anyone could learn how to, survive in Ethermore and thrive in Ethermore. But, like, we have examples of people being good at that and it being good for Ethermore, and people being good at that and it being bad for Ethermore. So it's kind of fun.
I like how deeply you think about our book. I'm like, wow. This is real analysis. The thing that we created for fun.
I went to school and now I think deeply about things. That is all that we have for y'all today. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video and you want to keep following us on our writing journey, remember to click that subscribe button. We have come so far. And yet, we have so much.
So far to go.
So many hurdles to jump over.
It's a journey.
It's a quest. We will be back next week with another video, but until then, remember,
Two heads are better than one.